I've decided to go back to Madden 25, but this time taking over the Cincinnati Bengals, and let's see how this goes. They have quite a few elite players, with Geno Atkins as the highest rated in the group. Big priority to re-sign this mountain of a man. Followed by AJ Green. He should keep our offense explosive. Reggie Nelson may be heading into his twilight years as a defender, but he's still very good. And Michael Johnson is in the final year of his contract, but there's no doubt he's an important piece I need to re-sign. And the final player is Leon Hall. The defense will be the strength of this team, and we'll figure out the offense from there. Speaking of offense, Andy Dalton will lead it. And this team will only go as far as he goes, and this is the preseason roster, so many won't make it to the main roster, but Benjarvis Green-Ellis will be the starter when the season begins. Presley doesn't make it at fullback, but John Connor does. AJ Green leads the receiving group, which isn't hard to do. Other than him, there's really not many other threats at his position. This is a very competitive tight ends group, and at the end of the day, Gresham, Eifert, and Charles made the team. Whitworth will be starting at left tackle, Warden at left guard, but we'll need to find a replacement soon. Cook will start at center, but another position that will be looked into this offseason if there's no improvement. I think at this point you'll realize the interior of the line isn't great. Zeitler at right guard. At least our tackles are decent with Smith on the right side. On the defense, starting from the left end position, we have Dunlap, Hunt, and Gilberry fighting for the starting spot. At right end, Johnson is without a doubt starting, with Gellers behind as depth. Atkins is the clear starter at defensive tackle. We do run a 4-3 defense, so it'll be nice to find someone better to pair with him. At left outside linebacker, James Harrison is the starter. I must have completely forgot about this because I do not remember him as a Bengal. Ray Maualuga is a starting inside linebacker, but come next season, we need to find better depth behind him. I don't know why it says Perfect is a rookie. He's not a rookie, but he will be starting this year. Our top 3 corners are Hall, Newman, yes, Terrence Newman, and Pac-Man Jones. This might be our best position. At free safety, Reggie Nelson will obviously be the starter, while at strong safety, I made the decision to start Williams over Mays. Mike Nugent is the starting kicker, Kevin Huber, the punter. Now before we go into the season, I did make a trade. Pico was way down on the depth chart, and I traded him to Washington for Cofield and a 6th round pick in 2015. I think we got a decent player in return. Pico wasn't going to start, and Cofield will. There was another player I was interested in trading, Carlos Dunlap. I know this will hurt some people, but with depth behind him and on the final year of his contract, I traded him to the Rams for a 2015 2nd round pick. I ended up moving Gellers over to his position to, at the very least, be a stopgap player. So we start the year at Soldier Field, taking on the Chicago Bears for the season opener. The good news, we didn't lose. The bad news, we didn't win. We start out the first game of the year with a tie. Week 2, we have our home opener against the Steelers, James Harrison, the revenge game. The Bengals tried to make a second half comeback, but ultimately lost by a field goal in the 4th. After the nail biter, they take on the Packers in week 3, and they completely melted down in the second half. This team is a tale of 2 halves, and now move on to 0-2-1 on the year. The defense is cooking, but the offense is really weighing them down as they take on the Browns in week 4. Back-to-back blowout losses, and to the Browns out of all teams. We're the worst team in the division, I think. Now we take on a very good New England team. They actually brought a fight to them, forcing a 4th quarter game-winning drive to beat them. Maybe we're good, but we don't know it. We went toe-to-toe with New England, and now we take on their rival, the Buffalo Bills. Maybe we are bad. The defense had a complete meltdown. Now we take on a very good Lions team, oh my. Well, that's pretty much how I thought it was going to go. We're still winless on the year, the first ever 0-15 team to finish the season. 0-6-1 on the year, and Peter Schrager asked if there's a coaching change on the horizon, and I told him these sons of bitches better get their shit together or heads are gonna roll. Unfortunately, that wasn't an option, so I chose to tell him that I'll just wait till the end of the year before I make a decision on the coaching changes. Week 8, the halfway point, there's a good chance we get our first win of the year against the lowly Jets. Of course, the team has a 4th quarter comeback and falls short by 3 points. We didn't win a single game in our first 8 games. A Thursday night game against the Miami Dolphins. They actually have more ties than we do. And we finally got our first win against the Dolphins. This time, they were the team that held out to win by 3 in the end. And now I'm okay with losing every game from here on out. Can we have a win streak happen? We're playing the Ravens. So I doubt it. That's the Bengals I know. We're going to get a sweet draft pick at the end of the year. In week 11, Geno Atkins decided to have contract talks, and let's be honest, we need to back up the dump truck for this guy. I offered slightly more than he even wanted. Earlier this year, we got our butts handed to us by the Browns in week 4. The Bengals gave them a shutout in return. I don't know what happened to this team after week 8, but they have 2 wins in 3 weeks. Considering they had 0 in their first 8, I'm shocked. Oh, and Atkins agreed to the contract. After a week 12 bye, they take on the Chargers. Before the game, another player negotiating his contract, Michael Johnson. I'd gladly overpay for these players. With this win, the Bengals won back-to-back games for the first time this year. Our draft stonks are plummeting. Johnson also agreed to the contract we gave him, and as you can tell, our defense is pretty good, but our offense is struggling as we take on the equally low Colts. It was every bit the shootout that nobody predicted. The Bengals once again fell short, helping those draft stonks. Now they take on the 10-3 Steelers. They lost by a field goal last time, but this time can James Harrison get his revenge? There were 2 players we negotiated contracts with, one being Taylor Mays, moved him to free safety, and he's been having a pretty good resurgence. The other player was Anthony Collins. As you can tell, I love overpaying for players to make sure they stay. The Bengals somehow pulled off a win, and the Steelers are sour about it. We almost won the first meeting. This was no fluke. Also, both Mays and Collins agreed to their contracts, and now we take on the Minnesota Vikings, and the Bengals are cooking now. And that's the Bengals I know. Another loss by less than a touchdown. The final game of the year is against the Ravens, and the last time they lost by 11 points and increased their draft stonk. This time they win by 10 points and decrease their draft stonk. I'm upset. We went 0-7-1 just to finish 5-3. Are we a good team? I don't know. With the season over for us, let's look at the awards. Peyton Manning takes the NFL MVP, while his coach John Fox takes the Coach of the Year. Some of the Bengals were mentioned for some of the awards, like second-year player Vontaze Burfict. He came in 3rd for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He had over 100 tackles and only 1 interception with a sack. I told you it was his second year. Andy Dalton was ranked 7th best quarterback in the AFC, so he's in the top half at least. He had over 3,600 yards in the air, sounds like a good thing, but he only had 14 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. Is he on the hot seat? He might be. Ben Jarvis Green Ellis was the 6th ranked running back in the AFC, getting close to 30 before running backs fall apart. Green Ellis ran for over 1,300 yards. Unfortunately, he did it the Eddie George way by carrying the ball 367 times while averaging under 4 yards a carry. AJ Green was also the 6th best receiver in the AFC. His numbers were really good. He was on par to his previous season with the team, so hopefully we're not wasting him here. A shocking player to make the list? Robert Gellers. He was the 10th best defensive lineman in the AFC. He only had 7 sacks, but it was good enough to get him on the list. Geno Atkins just missed out on the Best Defensive Lineman award, losing to J.J. Watt. He had 9 sacks, which is impressive for a defensive tackle. I'm glad I gave him that long-term contract earlier this year. He was also the only Bengal player to make the Pro Bowl. The last Bengal to make the list, Reggie Nelson, 5th in the AFC for Best Defensive Back, 4 interceptions on the year and 95 tackles. That'll get you noticed. We do have staff whose contracts are up this year. We have a problem with Marvin Lewis. I don't want to reward him for the slow start at the beginning of the year, but he did finish strong, so I offered him a 1-year deal worth his previous contract. As for the trainer, I let him walk. To replace him, I offered Corey Slaughter an offer, which he accepted. Marvin Lewis didn't accept our offer. He wanted $1 million more than what I gave. I also briefly considered Rex Ryan, before settling on Thomas Khun, a rookie coach. And that is not the face you want leading this franchise, but that's what we have. With the new coach signed, that means we can focus on the re-signings. John Skelton will not be brought back. We already have a backup behind Andy Dalton. Mike Polak was someone I really wanted to bring back, and I gave him what he wanted. He just didn't want to return to the team, and I assume it's because no bonus was the killing point. Jeremy Miles is no more than a backup strong safety, so it'd be nice not to worry about that position. He too didn't want to return like Polak. John Connor is next on the list. I chose to throw a little bit more money at him. Don't have a replacement. Thankfully, he accepted the offer and will be returning. Aaron Maben was sitting behind James Harrison, but there's a good chance that he may be a starter next year. I gave him more than he wanted, and surprise, surprise, he accepted. I wanted to bring back Andrew Hawkins too. He was second on the team in receiving, but he wanted way too much to be a number 2. I just ended negotiations, which means free agency is next, and obviously to replace Hawkins I went after Michael Jenkins. He accepted the offer, was much cheaper, and if you notice, this offense will be running a West Coast under Khun, meaning Jenkins signing could be huge. I also went after Chris Harris. Hall, Newman, and Jones are all 30 or turning into dust. I'm trying to future-proof the team. He also accepted the offer, and he too was cheaper than Hawkins. This defense will also be very different under Khun. It will be an attacking 4-3, and look at that. I think we nailed free agency. Now we move on to the NFL draft. We're sitting at 9th overall. We went lineman in the first round, left guard to be more exact. Shannon Edens will be competing for the left guard spot, but let's be honest, he's going to be the starter. In the second round, we once again went lineman. Phil Starnes will be the starting center, most likely. We need to buff this interior line, and so far it's better. Third round, we selected an inside linebacker. We don't have much depth behind Maualuga. He's better than what we had before, but not by much. In the fourth round, we went quarterback, Torin Newkirk. This one is interesting. I've been following his career. 29 years old, can beat you with his arms or legs. He won the Heisman. He went to the national championship, but his stock began to really plummet with his Senior Bowl performance. Questions were also raised about his injury history, and he had a poor pro day, so I took a chance on him. In the fifth round, I went running back. Otha Rich may be a project player, but I like his potential. In the sixth round, I went receiver. Do I need him? Probably not, but it doesn't hurt to take a chance. And the final round, I selected a cornerback. These later picks were potential picks, so we'll see if they become something. That is it for season 1. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I had a lot of fun doing this one. I'm really excited to see how the quarterback battle is going to be, and let's see how our new coach handles his rookie year.